Hello and welcome back to another Doctor Who action figure review. In today's review I'm taking a look at the second Doctor and TARDIS from the War Games, exclusive to B&M stores. Once again, a massive thank you to Al who sent this to me ahead of the release date so I could review it. As ever, let's dig straight in by taking a quick look at the packaging. So the set is packaged in the now familiar window box with the blue and grey and the TARDIS on the side, and then on the back of the box we get treated to the initial publicity image of the set, and we also get a plot synopsis for the War Games, which is an absolutely superb story if you've not watched it before. And then of course the inside of the box features another backdrop, just like we see with all of these TARDIS sets, which is one of my favourite parts about the packaging. This time we have a row of Sid rats used by the Warlords. This is really lovely, beautifully rendered. I love all the lighting and stuff, it looks really great. And when you put the TARDIS in there with Pat Troughton, it just makes for a lovely display piece. I really love the fact that they keep doing these, and fingers crossed they keep on doing them for all future sets as well. Before I get into the TARDIS, let's just look at the new second Doctor. This is a figure that I'm sure people will be really pleased to see, because he's not really the easiest figure to get, particularly if you want to get the second Doctor actually from his era. Really, the only sort of proper second Doctor, for want of a better word, was from that San Diego Comic-Con Tomb of the Cybermen set, and of course the accompanying black and white version as well. So this is going to be really great for people who missed out on that, because it gives us a different version of the second Doctor from his own era. But as ever, there are a few paint differences compared to that original release, and these are differences that look closer to the reference images of the War Games. I'll take you through that now. So starting with the head sculpt, same sculpt as before. It's a great sculpt. It's obviously Patrick Troughton. Then we move down to the main body of the figure. So again, it's all the same sculpt, just repainted. The jacket and the arms and everything, that's all been cast in a black plastic, but this time around they've given it this dirty wash over the top, which I really like because, as you know, in that story, the Doctor goes through a lot. He's going through the trenches, he's getting muddy and dirty. You know, you don't really see a lot of that, but we know that his costume, particularly by that point, is pretty tatty. Narrative aside, just as a costume, it's looking pretty ropey. So I like the fact that they've just added a little something to it, just to differentiate it, and just to almost sort of show that it's towards the end of his time as the Doctor. Then we have the shirt underneath, which is a very, very pale blue, almost white, which again looks very similar to the reference pictures that we do have from the War Games. It is slightly different to the one with the Tomb of the Cybermen set, which I really like because, again, it's another difference. And then the red hanky is a much brighter red, which, again, is a lot closer to the red of the actual hanky in the programme. There's no pattern on it, sadly, but that was exactly the same with the Tomb of the Cybermen version as well. And, of course, you have the bow tie, which is the same darker blue with the white polka dots. And then if we move down to the trousers, the legs are cast in a solid grey, and then they have the checkered pattern painted on top, and then they've given it this dirty wash all over, again to add to the dirtiness of the look, which again I think works really well. It's a nice contrast to that cleaner Tomb of the Cybermen look. They've also added an additional detail, which is the tear on his knee. Now, on the initial publicity image that we saw of this figure, that was really quite clear. You could see that it was painted on like this is torn fabric. Here, however, it isn't quite the same. And I'll be honest, when I first saw it, I thought, oh dear, they haven't painted that particularly well, what a shame. But actually, if you look at the more recent publicity images, the knees actually do look like that. So, unfortunately, that detail has been slightly lost. It's not a massive loss, I've got to say. I think it was a fun idea. You can still sort of see that there's an area where it's slightly darker and where the checkers don't carry on. So I'm guessing that blank part is like the fabric folded over, and dark part is the shadow of the trouser leg. It's a fun idea. I just don't think it necessarily worked quite as well in the end. Perhaps maybe the dark part could have been a flesh colour paint, but maybe that would have looked a bit too weird. I'm not sure, but it was a nice idea nonetheless. And then of course if we move down to the shoes, you can see that these are just a solid brown with another wash of dirt over the top. So then if we look at the articulation on the second Doctor, it's all the basic articulation you'd expect on an earlier figure like this. He has articulation at the head, it's a little bit stiff. I think that was the same on most of the second Doctors actually. Swivel joints at the shoulders, so they can go all the way around. Also at the biceps, as you can see. swivel joints at the elbows so they can pivot back and forth like that. At the wrists as well. Again, kind of stiff. The large cuffs don't really help, but there you go. You can get some movement out of there. He has articulation at the waist. Again, the big coat getting in the way, but it's there, I promise you. If you can sort of get your fingers around it, you can just swivel it around. He has articulation at the hips, so they can pivot forward, back, and then whoop, out to the sides with that T-crotch piece at the thigh as well. As you can see, just twisting it there. And then also articulation at the knee, so they can pivot back and forth. Very stiff, actually, at the knee, which isn't a bad thing. Better to have tighter joints than loose joints. So overall, the Second Doctor, a nice new variant. It's going to be great for people who missed out on that original Tomb of the Cybermen version of the Second Doctor. So I'm sure people are going to be very pleased with that. And of course, if you do have it, it's just a nice new slight variation. Then we move over to the TARDIS. So this is where things start to get really interesting. So this is the same altered Bukaki model that we've seen used on various sets in the past, most recently the Monster of Peladon set. However, there have been some changes, and I'm just going to go through that now. Obviously, like I say in all these reviews, whenever I review these TARDISes, these toys are not 100% accurate to the original props. But saying that, they have tried even harder to get things closer still, which I think is really great. So it features the modified door sign, which is in black and white. They've given it a dirty wash over the top. The font's good, the layout's good. It looks very much like the door plaque in the series at the time, except with the frame. Then we get to the top signs. This is where there's been a great improvement. So on the most recent releases, they did use the white background with the black text on the front and the back. However, they also used it on the sides. So what they've done this time is they've added the correct white on black signs on the sides. However, it's still black and white on the back. I'm really pleased that they've managed to update it ever so slightly. A lot of people are going to be really pleased about that. And I love that they've added the dirty wash over the text, because those signs were getting really grubby by this point. And something that I quite like, and I don't know if it will be to everybody's tastes, the text sort of varies in thickness. So you can see like the E on the police box sign here is a lot thicker and almost looks a bit wonky. I actually really like that, because the real signs weren't necessarily completely straight and neat and tidy. They were a bit janky. And then of course we have this newly tooled lamp on top. This looks great. I'm so pleased with this, because it's much closer to the actual lamp that we see. It's still on the enlarged box, but that is just left over from the tooling of the roof. But as you can see, we have the 4 corner posts here, and then the large cylindrical lamp with the dome on top, rather than the circular Fresnel lens version. This is really great. It's all one piece, so you can see actually that the 4 corner posts actually are the same mould as the central part. But when you look at it from afar and the way that it's been painted, you can't really see that it's all one piece. So I think that works really well. I'm sure that we'll see this tooling used again. They'll probably do other altered Bukaki TARDISes. Hopefully we'll see a First Doctor version at some point with the white door sign. That would be great. So yes, overall, that's really cool. So just like all the other TARDISes, this works in exactly the same way. The doors are spring-loaded, so they click open like that. Obviously this is the looser one. And then to close it, click it at the top with the latch, and then you have the button in the bottom to close it like so. Now let's talk about the colour. So when this set was first announced, we saw the publicity images, and it was a very dark blue with a dark wash over the top. Now, however, it's almost black. It's actually a very, very, very dark grey. It could be that it's actually a very, very, very dark blue-grey. I'm starting to sound like that bit in Father Ted. To my eyes, it looks like it's a grey colour. I can't see any blue in it, personally. And then they've added this lighter grey wash over the top, which works really well. It just adds to the dirtiness and the grubbiness of the prop. It's particularly effective on the windows, I think, because it gets into all of the pebbled effect on the glass, and it just adds this lovely sort of grimy smear to it. So overall, I think it works really well. However, I'm not 100% sold on the colour. I know the TARDIS at this time sometimes almost does look black, or you know, it's a very, very dark grey blue. And I think when we see that original publicity images, yeah, I really like that. But here, it almost feels like it's a black and white TARDIS. And it's a bit weird, because on the one hand, part of me is like, you know, it looks great because it is from a black and white story. But the other part of me is like, oh yeah, but it should be blue. But I guess, they're trying to make sure that these TARDISes are as different from each other. And obviously, we've seen quite a few of these altered Bukaki boxes used in the last few sets. So I can see why they would try and steer clear from colours that they've used before. If you've got the black and white Patrick Troughton figure, I would love to see you put the two side by side, because I imagine that there'll be a match made in heaven. But regardless of that, I think it's a really great set. Really good if you've missed out on that Patrick Troughton. A great opportunity to get this version of the TARDIS, particularly with the improved tooling with the lamp and the improved paint for the sign boxes as well. Once again, a massive thank you to Alduar for sending this over to me to review. And as ever, happy hunting, finding these sets at B&M towards the end of July. This set should be about £20, which is absolutely great. And yeah, hopefully see you all soon for more Doctor Who action figure reviews.